feel like whatever trying to get wired up with this microphone tonight. It kept sliding out. But we made it work by the grace of God. We're going to keep on in our series. Tonight we're looking at that word admirable. Yeah, right there, admirable. Now, your translation when we get to it may say of good report, because that's what mine said. But that's what that means as we think about whatever. Paul challenges you, young people. Paul challenges you, children. And Paul challenges you and me as adults to think about our thought life, choosing that which is holy and healthy subjects. When you apply for a job, most times they probably will ask you to provide references. That is, people who will, who know you. And I'm not talking about mom and dad or aunt and uncle, okay? I'm talking about people who may be your teachers. They may be somebody like me, a pastor. Or they may be somebody that you have already worked for. And they know a little bit about you. They know about your, what's called a work ethic. In other words, how hard do you work and do you do the best job that you can? Okay? You may not always do it right 100 times, but do you do the best that you can? And, of course, a little bit about your personal character. In other words, they vouch for you. References, of course, are important because you want each person who is a reference for you when you're applying for a job, okay? You want them to say something good about you. You want them to say something that's honest, something that's true. You don't want to make it up. When I taught at Benton Academy, I taught for 16 years. It was my privilege to write letters of recommendation for students that had been in my class, my 7th grade class, my 10th grade class, and then the 2 years I had. When I first started, I taught seniors, and then my last year that I was there, I taught seniors. It was awesome, kind of like bookends and everything. And so different ones would come to me and say, Brother Moore, I'm applying for a certain scholarship at Mississippi State or Ole Miss or whatever college they're looking for. Will you write a letter of recommendation? That's like a reference, okay? They want me to vouch for them. And, of course, I'd talk about their academics, I'd talk about their athletics, and about their character and integrity. And I would always tell my students, well, then make sure that you're living what you want me to talk about, because I'm not going to make it up, okay? I'm not going to wait till the last minute and all of a sudden, man, you've had a dramatic conversion, because that ain't the you on paper ain't what I see on an everyday basis. So you want to make sure that the references give you, dare I say it, a good report. That's what we're looking at tonight. As we look at that, the same is true spiritually and with your thought life. We want and we need to fill our mind and therefore our heart. The mind, that's the academic, but the heart, that's where the passion is. That's where the emotion is, and that's where the Spirit always works with the mind and the heart. We need to fill our mind and heart with things that are of a good report or that are admirable. I didn't say admiral. That's somebody who's over the Navy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about admirable, something that is worthwhile, something that is encouraging, something that is uplifting. That is, you might say, food for thought and fuel for your soul. Because there's enough negative in the world. I used to be, at one time, I used to love to, back when CNN actually told the news, I used to love to be a CNN junkie, was watching politics all the time. And then after a while, it just got to be, what's the point? And then lately, for the last 18 months, it's been COVID, 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 COVID. You can learn the Greek alphabet, people. Start with COVID Delta, that's a triangle. Then you have COVID Lambda, which is Greek for the letter L. And then COVID Mu, which is the letter M. And eventually, we're going to get to COVID Omega. Hold on to your hats on that one, I suppose. But I will say this. It's so easy on TV or internet or Facebook, TikTok, or whatever it is that you do for social media these days. It's so easy to just fill your mind and your heart with things that are not good, with things that are not clean, with things that are not healthy, with things that are not holy, things that are not admirable. Now, we acknowledge the bad. We can't hide from it. You can't stick your head in the sand like an ostrich. You can't hide in a closet, so to speak, because it's always going to be there. But you don't have to obsess over it. Think about the things. Look for those things that are of a good report. The Bible tells us that we are to, whatever things are of a good report, if they're praiseworthy, if they're virtuous, we're to think on those things. Tracy Hagler said, we spend most of our lives in our heads, hanging out with our thoughts. We need to make sure our minds are a safe and healthy place to be. What we think on, it matters. And I would say, amen. So what is meant by a good report? We already kind of hinted at it with the word admirable. What is meant by a good report? Well, that word good report is a word in the language of the Greek, euphemos, like euphemous, okay, like euphemous, somebody who's a celebrity. That's a way you can pronounce it, but that's not what it means. But I love that. Euphemous, okay, that word only appears one time. So it means it is something special that you pay attention to, and we're paying attention to it tonight. The scholar says it means something well spoken of, something reputable. A commentator by the name of Ellicott says this word is unique, and it relates to that which is fair sounding, and it is actually associated with the word lovely, which is also a word that is only found one time in that particular letter in the New Testament. So that's important. Think about those things of good report, things that are reputable. I have known some people who are disreputable. They're not good people, but I've known them. I've also known some people that I would highly recommend to you that if I tell you somebody is solid, you can take that to the bank and know that they are trustworthy and that they're genuine. Back when I taught, midterms was a big thing. It may be a big thing for y'all, for those of you who are in school, where you usually have big tests that cover several units, and you're going to be graded on it, and that grade's going to be, then by the time I left Benton Academy, we had gone high tech. We were putting grades online. Each student had their own ID and could access and find out what their grade was, and the remarks and comments that I sometimes would leave, always trying to be edifying, or one or two, you didn't do your work. Okay, there you have it. So with that said, the thing was that parents could check it out as well, and technically that was their report card, but the school would still send out a report card. Those grades were permanent. You're not very easily going to change a grade on a report card. That report has something to say about your ability, about your working to the best of your ability. Everybody that I ever taught hoped and wanted that report card to say something good, especially teachers' comments. You wanted something good. I remember one student, I cannot mention her name, obviously, online, but one student, I made the statement, forgot her mom was a teacher, and we talked about it afterwards. I said, yeah, she's a great student. However, she is a social butterfly. She talks constantly and incessantly in class. And of course, her mother said, I didn't know. I said, well, hey, I'm just telling you what I deal with. But we laughed about it because she said that was the only negative report that her daughter had ever gotten, at least up to that point. And I thought, well, at least we have a trend. Some get blindsided. There were a couple of report cards in college at midterm that blindsided or T-boned me. I'm thinking, where did that come from? I thought I was doing great. I thought I was doing awesome in my grades. Well, when you make an 85, I'm thinking, no, that's not so awesome, not so great. That means I've got to buckle down. Same thing. So that's a definition, but let's look at the determination. When you think about the things that are reputable, the things that are admirable, the things that are praiseworthy like that, you have to give deep thought. It's not something that just happens. It's not something that you do by accident. But it's something that is intentional, not incidental. Paul suggested that we should occupy our minds with things other than anxiety and worry. Here, the term admirable is used, something worthy of admiration and affection, deserving of a good reputation. Of according to Dr. Max Anders. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 15, verse 30, the light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat. I don't want my bones to be fat. I'm good enough where I am. Okay, I'd like to lose about 20 more pounds, but I'll say this, the context of that verse is the things that will bring blessing to your life, the things that will help you to perhaps be a blessing in the life of somebody else. Focus on the things that are admirable, the things that are praiseworthy. So what are some things that are good report as we edge towards a close? I said edge towards a close. I didn't say we're through. Well, there's some personal. For example, when you hear or see on Facebook or in any other platform gossip, okay, you know you don't have to listen to it, especially if it's a lie. You can turn it off. And then if you know the truth, especially about a person or situation, and if it's appropriate for you to be able to involve yourself, speak the truth. Speak up. In other words, you are doing something in that moment that is honorable by saying, well, you know, that's not what I heard. Here's what I heard about so-and-so. Here's what they have done, or here's what they didn't do. And you may get some pushback for that. You may have some people who take issue with you on Facebook. But on the other side of that, you're bringing a good report. Okay, but you have to be careful with Facebook. Or when you see things or hear of appropriate news and praise of others who have done something, have achieved something, have demonstrated something admirable in their life, congratulate them, celebrate it. Let it inspire you to go and do likewise. You want people to think well of you. You want people to speak well of you. You want people to treat you well. Then as a Christian, look for the good in another person that you can speak well of them about or speak well to them about. Sometimes that's a challenge, but it needs to be done. But those are some things that can bring on the personal side in terms of a good report that are admirable. I always try to find, when I taught class, when I had to give bad news, there was one girl, I just give up. I'm just whatever, kind of like our theme, whatever. And she rolled her eyes at me too. That was amazing. And I looked at her and she said, I'm just stupid. I said, no, you're not stupid. I said, I don't ever want to hear you say that. I said, you're not stupid. First of all, I said, God created you and God don't make no mistakes. So you can't be stupid. Second, I said, you have the potential to learn this material. You just need to apply yourself. And I said, number three, I refuse to let you give up on yourself. I said, whether I have to be nipping at your heels every single day or be that track coach every single day. You got this. All you got. I'll do it. I said, but you're not going to quit. She didn't. And by the grace of God, she passed, and she had a solid B in my class. Find the positive. Find that which is of admirable quality in the lives of others and share that. On a practical level, you may be wanting to try something new. And so rather than listen to nothing but negatives from maybe your own thoughts. Oh, I can't do that. I'm just too dumb. Or maybe other people add negatives into your life. Well, you need to be careful. Or maybe you can't do that. Now, listen to what's good. I mean, there are sometimes concerns that are voiced or needed. You need to pay attention. But other times, it's just negativity. Instead of focusing on the negatives, listen and dwell on that which is positive, that which is right. In other words, there was a class that I took in Mississippi College. I was in the pre-law program. That meant I had to take constitutional development, which is a constitutional law class. They said it's the hardest class there is. You're going to regret that. I signed up for it. Oh, I heard a lot of negatives. Oh, you're going to fail that one. Dr. Ron Howard, not the movie dude, but the different guy. He's hard. He's hard. Guess what? They were right. He was hard. And I aced the class, okay? Because the work that it required of me, I enjoyed, number one. But then number two, the work that it required, it wasn't any worse than other classes I'd have had. Every class I had ended up with a 10-page term paper, so just add one more to it. What's it going to do? And so it was worth it because when I graduated from Mississippi College in 1993, guess what? I had the opportunity later on to go to seminary where on the master's level, guess what? It really was hard. And we had, for a while before we went to semester status, we had term system. So you multiply whatever term papers you're writing in high school or college by a factor of 4. You talking about difficult, but it was worth it. But had I just listened to the negatives, I would not be here tonight. I had some people say, oh, I don't know if you need to be a preacher. I don't know if that's your niche. I actually had that said to me. In other words, I don't know if that's where you plug in. Well, no, I'll let God be the judge on that. But if you're God called, then you're going to follow where God leads. And that's what I have tried to do. So not listening to the negative. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. So 2 application points, and then I'm done. Oh, you may have to sometimes start over on something. Sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to have that F on the report card. Sometimes you're going to have that F in college. You make an F in college, it's wasted money, by the way. And you have a choice. You can just say, oh, well, whatever. Or you can say, you know, what is that F? What is that bad grade? What is that failure saying to me? You're worthless? You're no good? No. It says, well, here's the area where you're weak. Here's what you need to do to get better or stronger. I learned that from track, and I have applied it in life. And I believe the same is true spiritually. Listen to the things, even when if it's bad news, there's still a good report. Occupy your mind and your time on the things that are a good report and admirable. But do so in light of the Bible, people. It'll help you explore all the possibilities. And sometimes you got to go look for that good report. It may not always come to you. You're surrounded by a sea of negatives, and you may be surrounded by a bunch of negative Nellies. Sometimes you got to go look for that positive. It's worth the effort, because that which is of a good report is good for you. But always be sure the good report, as I said, lines up with God's good news and God's will. Let God be true and every man a liar, Romans 3:4. So feed your mind the good and godly things. With that said, of good report, by His grace, go with God.